Beijing, a terrifying spirit that haunts the island nation, spreads curses far worse than any urban legend. If you learn his name, death is certain. He'll find you no matter where you hide. Gather your friends and watch at your own risk. A girl excitedly shared a spooky wedding story with her friend when suddenly an eerie bell chimed. Chanel, entranced, approached the window. Something unseen terrified her, leaving her cowering and babbling. Her friend, however, saw nothing unusual. As the bell drew closer, Chanel's fear reached its peak. Witnessing Chanel's gruesome death, her friend was left in shock, unable to process the scene. More bizarre deaths continued to plague the island nation. A man left a store, receiving a call from his brother. Strangely, the brother spoke of spirits and afterlife. The brother sat despondently at home, while a woman lurked behind the bedroom curtains. Realizing something was wrong, Lingmu rushed to his brother's house only to find him dead inside. Forensics revealed heart failure caused the death, rupturing his eyes. It wasn't murder, but the brother's final moments suggested someone else was present. Investigating, Lingmu discovered his brother's colleague, Chanel, died similarly 3 days prior. This coincidence led Lingmu to his stepson for answers. Learning about Chanel's death, Lingmu became certain a dark secret was involved. Their only lead now was Yongzi, a colleague of both victims. Because they had traveled together, Eiko knew their killer, but he was reluctant to name him, only briefly describing the person to the two. Not long ago, bored at the hotel, the three decided to share ghost stories. Just then, a wine delivery worker passed by, also interested in ghost tales. Seeing their enthusiasm, Arwei shared his own chilling story with them. A female ghost haunts the incense boat, appearing with bell sounds. Knowing her name, Shirai, means certain brutal death. At first they thought it just a scary tale. Now, with 2 mysterious deaths, Eiko suspects a connection to the story. Luckily, he didn't name Shirai. Before they could ask, Eiko went to the kitchen, planning to end his life before Shirai arrived. Fortunately, Lingmu heard the commotion and saved him. But then, Eiko accidentally blurted out Shirai's name. Waking in the hospital, Eiko felt guilty but had to tell them they were now cursed. Meanwhile, a waiter heard bells and saw a strange woman appear in his sight. The woman had a bell, its red string piercing right through her palm. The waiter ran, but Shirai was always one step ahead no matter where he went. Completely panicked, he could only keep retreating as Shirai relentlessly pursued him. Next, it was Yuko's turn to face the horror. Seeing a woman's shadow, Yuko called a nurse. Finding nothing, she fled, hiding in a corner. Peeking out, she saw Shirai behind the nurse. Terrified, Yuko ran through the hospital, fell, and saw Shirai at the door. This sentence appeared before me. In the end, Yongzi, like Chanel, received a lavish gift from Bai Jing. The nurse who rushed to Wensheng was nearly hospitalized from shock at his condition. After learning Bai Jing's name, strange events began occurring around the woman. Chanel's presence was constant, regardless of the time. The woman thought she was hallucinating, but similar events occurred at the mausoleum. This was clearly a sign of Bai Jing's impending appearance. To break the curse, they visited the hotel from the story, seeking a solution. A journalist with the same goal was also present. The reporter had long suspected the deaths weren't simple and investigated secretly. He had also encountered the two at the hospital. Learning their connection to the deceased, he felt he'd made a breakthrough. To protect him, they never mentioned Bai Jing to the reporter. They visited Awei's tavern, hoping the story's source might hold answers. Disappointingly, they learned Awei had died days earlier. Colleagues said Awei recently found the story in his childhood diary, indicating he was unaware of the curse or how to handle Bai Jing. Meanwhile, the reporter discovered the waiter who met Bai Jing had survived. The waiter lived by finding Bai Jing's weakness, staring at him fearlessly kept him away. The skeptical reporter found this hard to believe, but the waiter was adamant. After hearing the recorded story, the reporter prepared to rest for a while. The reporter actually saw Bai Jing, but before he could grasp the situation, his wife called. After answering, he told his wife about Bai Jing. He rushed back looking distraught, and the reporter quickly shared his findings. As they listened to the recording, the wife, alone outside, heard bells behind her. She turned to see Bai Jing standing nearby, staring intently at her. She hurriedly called Ling Mu for help, but in an instant Bai Jing approached. Luckily, Ling Mu had advised her on how to handle Bai Jing. Following instructions, Bai Jing kept his distance but called out lovingly, asking her to look at him. Seeing her distress, Bai Jing, who had been watching intently, suddenly walked towards her. Just as things escalated, Ling Mu arrived in time to restrain Bai Jing. They backed away while watching Bai Jing finding a safer spot and began a long standoff with him. Ling Mu knew they couldn't stay like this. They needed an open area where they could escape if things went wrong, but first they had to get past Bai Jing, then past him again. Suddenly, Bai Jing used his powerful mind to pull the wife into an illusion. The scene was ancient, with an altar and a woman seated before it. The walls were covered in charms, likely the source of Bai Jing's power. When Ling Mu woke her, it was dawn. They had narrowly escaped, but the waiter who survived before wasn't so lucky this time. He was enjoying music when suddenly he heard bells. He opened the curtains to check outside, but couldn't shake his unease. Frightened, he hid in a corner. A terrible scream came from inside. His father rushed in, opening the door. He nearly had a heart attack, as his precious son had tragically died inside the house. After learning of the waiter's death, they investigated the white scene's origin. They learned from Awei's brother that a folklore expert lived nearby when they were young. The expert told Awei that story. Shortly after, the expert unexpectedly passed away. Since Awei was still young, he quickly forgot the story. Luckily, the expert left behind some books detailing the white scene's origin. Legend says in early Showa-era Japan, in a place called Muyin Village, villagers would pierce their palms, hang bells, and use them to cast curses, warding off invaders. But the villagers had inbred for centuries, causing disease. The whole village died in a plague, but the curse lived on. To break the curse, they decided to go to Tokyo for more information. Halfway there, their car broke down. Worse still, there was no signal. As they wondered what to do, Xiao Mei figured out the white scene's pattern. It kills every 3 days. Now, only they three and the reporter's wife knew about it. Today was the 3rd day since the waiter's death. The reporter panicked, insisting on rushing back to his wife. Then he had an idea to save their lives and reduce the island's population indirectly. The white scene appears every 3 days, targeting randomly. If one person is cursed and lives to 80, that's 30,000 days. If they survive, they'd face the white scene 10,000 times. It seems hopeless, but if 2 people are cursed, they'd face it 5,000 times each. The more people cursed, the higher the chance of encountering it.